Hello, my name is Ravi Fitzwater. I own and operate Marketing Rhythm. We help e-commerce businesses with retention marketing and email marketing. One of the questions we keep getting asked and is a really hot topic for just broad marketing right now is using artificial intelligence, AI tools to incorporate into your marketing processes and systems. So these are tools that have been around for a while. And essentially understanding basically an AI tool at its fundamental level is a tool that helps understand patterns and create connections that humans wouldn't normally be able to see because they're using enormous data sets, basically something that wouldn't be comprehensible for the human mind. And now we've come into a place where we have a few more tools at our disposal, where in the past we've had predictive tools. Now we have a few more generative tools to help us drive more success through our marketing and ideally improve and optimize what we're going to be able to do. So those new tools really open up opportunities to optimize and drive more revenue, create better personalization and more impact with the marketing we're doing, and also make us as marketers more efficient through the process. So basically the combination of both those tools, the predictive side and the generative side, are where marketing is really going to start to thrive, and we're going to see a lot of innovation coming through. Again, like I mentioned, we've had a lot of tools on the predictive side for a while now. What's getting a lot more attention right now is the generative tools like ChatGPT, GPT-3, GPT-4, and like Dolly and like image generating softwares. All of those are really fascinating and really coming into play where we can, again, utilize them as marketers, and we're going to try and unpack how to take advantage of these tools, how to think about them, and how to understand them. So looking at these at a high level, how can we use AI to improve our email marketing campaigns and automations? Out of the gate, thinking about how we can use our predictive tools. A lot of these predictive tools are actually going to be built into a lot of email service providers that you may be using. So again, make sure you're looking at like the email service tool you're using to see if these tools are available or if some of these assets are already available native to the platform, so you can start taking advantage of them early. But basically understanding for e-commerce businesses, hey, what's a repurchase rate? What's a replenishment rate? Or it's a predictive repurchase rate or predictive replenishment rate for different products in different categories. What is the expected lifetime value? What are they going to be the most optimal smart sending times? What's going to be the gender of the different cohort you may be sending to? Number of upcoming purchases that somebody can expect, the churn probability of an individual user, and then when we can incorporate these data points into our automations and flows through logic or through triggers, this is going to allow us to really start to think about when we want to be communicating, how we want to be communicating. And like I mentioned before, basically this is going to give us a tool to make the context of the content we're sending extremely impactful and extremely valuable, because if we know what the replenishment rate is, we're going to be able to have messaging that's going to be really similar to what they would expect. If we know what their expected lifetime value is, if we know they're likely going to order more and more, we can communicate with them like we expect them to keep coming back because they likely are. So this is, again, pulling our historical data and using it to predict what's going to happen in the future. And that's what makes a lot of these, again, native tools really valuable. We also have a lot of product recommendation options that are available. So if your email service provider is able to take those purchases that have been made before and recommend specific products to that individual based on what they've purchased in the past or what services they may need, that's a really great way to use those tools too. Also for lead scoring for the B2B side, this is also a really easy area where you can start to incorporate a lot of this insight early, so your sales team is most effective in the way they're reaching out and with individual prospects. Also, there's ways to use this on the list hygiene side to make sure that we're cleaning our list, getting people who are likely to churn or people who are likely, again, not a valuable member of our list off our list. And then also with dynamic content, we may be, again, sending specific content to recipients given their previous behaviors. We have testing and optimization, ways that we can test and optimize our process, maybe popover forms, maybe, again, content inside of our actual emails. And we can use this as a way of, again, optimizing over time. And that predictive nature of those AI tools in those use cases really helps us make sure that we're going to be making data-informed decisions and optimizing for the goals we have. And that's kind of how we've been able to use these tools up to this point to a large extent. But then now we're opening up the door for a lot more of those generative tools, which in some ways may not give us as many unique ways to drive direct revenue right away, but it's ideally going to make the process and systems a lot more efficient and allow us to be a lot better as marketers, because basically it's opened up doors that we didn't have open in the past to really start to create content and build creative at scale, which is really cool and really fascinating to kind of go through. So a lot of those tools we just talked about, again, maybe in the ESP you may be using, but the generative tools are going to be a little bit off of, like, kind of probably away from your ESP. And those are going to be things like, again, ChatGPT. So thinking about how we can start to use those generative tools early is thinking about AI for written content in our emails. So how would we create written content in our emails? And if any of you guys have poked around with ChatGPT or any AI text language model, it's a really fascinating product because it's allowing us to kind of like give it a prompt and see what that prompt spits out. So the things that we've really found a lot of success in are, again, using it for subject lines and preview text. So testing and experimenting with those, going through a few iterations in here, and I'm actually going to dive into one of those right now. So we'll see if these work right now. ChatGPT can be a little tricky sometimes. So basically giving it a prompt to try and understand, hey, what are these calls to action to, again, try something new? So this is 10 calls to action to try a new espresso, under 25 characters long. So the more specific we are, the more insights it's going to be giving us. And we can get more nuance with these, but basically these are going to be giving us ways to kind of describe and brainstorm a lot of information really fast, stuff that we wouldn't necessarily be able to do on our own right away, but it's going to be able to help us do this really quickly. So if I did modify this slightly, it's going to, again, give me something different that hopefully is going to be a little bit more true to the voice of what I'm looking for. It may take a little while sometimes, but basically whatever we prompt in here is going to ideally come out on the other side. Some of these may take a little while, like I said, but it's going to give us some good insights into how we can use some of these tools. And so one way that we could possibly do this is if we wanted to build, again, body copy for an email, or even go one layer up, is like, how would we actually use this as a tool to actually generate content early? So we need to start to, again, create content that we can use it in an email. And so if we wanted to understand like 10 books every runner would need to read and why, we can start to build insights really quickly here. I'm trying to cancel this one again. Okay, so it's finally giving me my Vanilla Ice in the voice of Vanilla Ice song. So you can see how it can kind of like take a lot of different data points and bring it into something that makes sense. And again, for your voice and tone and the brand, it can bring in some kind of fascinating ideas. But if I change this to different, like 10 books every runner needs to read and why, it's going to give me, again, a longer list of specific content that's going to be, again, valuable for me. And if I was doing that primary research, it may take me hours or days to do all of this, but this is going to help like expedite the process generally and help me get there faster. So where we see a lot of value in this is like using this for a lot of primary research, but then incorporating our own expertise and insight into it, where we can start to use that as a piece of content on the site, where we have a subject matter expert possibly, again, adjusting and changing this and adding their value through their unique perspective, which is, again, going to be one thing that these tools can't do, because they, again, can't synthesize ideas with the level of expertise that humans have, because it predicts what's going to happen next. It's not necessarily going to be doing the synthesizing or higher level creative thinking. So if I did this again, the same prompt again, but changed it a little bit, it's going to change the result I'm going to get. So those books are going to be completely different based on one small modifier. And basically that's going to give me a great starting point to start to, like, once I'm there, it's off to the races. I can have a subject matter expert validate these and make sure that they're going to be accurate and reasonable. And then I can start going from there to understand how I want to just start to incorporate these into the work I'm doing. One of the things that gives this so much power is being able to expedite the process. And when we can expedite that process, it just helps us as marketers incorporate more of this into the work we're doing, as opposed to spending a ton of time and attention on the front end. I started to think about it like a calculator. Like, this is not going to replace the need to do math, but it's going to expedite the process of doing math and hopefully help you as a marketer improve the work you're doing. And so for headlines, body copy, subject matters, CTAs, even like the button text, you can give a specific range that you want it to be in, like we did earlier with the 25 characters or less. And that's going to help us start to understand how we want to be able to use these tools in a way that's going to, again, give us what we would need on the other side that we can take and run with. So that's where, again, these AI tools really help to expedite the process of content creation for the written side, but also there's other ways we can be using them too. So once we go from there, we can get into some of the AI image creation tools. That's where we're going to look at different things that are actually going to create visual content for us that we can use in different ways. One prompt that I've always kind of loved with this is you put in a prompt and you can see what you're describing and turn that into reality. So like this is a tool on Canva. This is Canva's new tool they've released. Again, you can use Midjourney. DALL-E is probably the most advanced right now. But Canva, this one's free and easy to use. So I've used up all my Midjourney credits right now. So we're gonna look at this one. But basically, like I typed in like a cat driving a mobile dog washing truck, and you can get it's basically just creating whatever I want to make. And if you want to see more of these, like you can generate more, or basically anything you'd want to build here, it can create for you. And it's really fascinating how you can give it a prompt based on text, but it can turn out a lot of different images really quickly. Again, some of those may be different than others, but basically it's going to be able to, again, democratize creative really fast. And when we can do that, even if you don't have an entire art department on your team, you can start to do a lot of this stuff really fast. Again, we haven't done as much of these used as many of these with our clients because luckily we have a lot of other creative assets available. And our team can do a lot of design work. But if you have a smaller budget, this is a way to expedite that process. So images for blog posts, images for header images, in an email. These are all great, easy ways we can do this. And then we can walk through what we want to see. So basically, like this is that like 10 books about running piled on a table. We can describe what we want to see and it'll start to generate images for it. One photo, I like lean towards realistic as possible, but you can do a lot more with these, and they can again use different prompts or different modifiers to get different types of content for them. So again, you may not be able to get all of those books about running, but you could still generate images like this. Let's see if this will work. So you can see how these start to use tools that we can leverage in different ways. And like we can even see how we can like borrow different art forms too if we wanted to too. So this is a more broad level idea, but again, it's kind of a fascinating idea and fascinating world where we can start to actually create these really fast. So we can also use it for repurposing content. Like we can take like an AI transcription tool like Otter AI to take a video and use that transcription to turn into a blog post, which is shamelessly what we will be doing with this video. So if you want to read this video, it'll be in a blog post in the description here. And also like tools like Lately can pull out some of the major points of a blog post to use to have the high level view of things or use for different calls to action to go to something. So those like tweetable quotes or tweetable moments from a blog post, you can pull out using those tools. So there's lots we can do here. And like basically, like I said, using it for resources like primary research, creating outlines for blog posts, creating outlines for a podcast, creating lists of items that you'd have to go look around or dive into on your own anyways. Also, some groups are using like tools like Gong, an AI tool for sales to pull like all of your sales calls and to aggregate like what are the key problem areas that people run into and turn that into, again, FAQs, turn that into content. So there's lots of different ways we can use it from a few different angles on the content side. Also in customer service, where again, response to questions via SMS and predictive answering of questions in the chat function. Really, this is, again, ways that we can use these in our email marketing, but also fits into our broader marketing picture where email marketing is a subset of our marketing. So if we're using these tools as a holistic view, it's really going to be a fascinating space to be leveraging these resources. Again, some of the tools I mentioned, ChatGPT, GPT-3. ChatGPT uses GPT-3. GPT-4 is going to be released later. Midjourney, Dolly, lately Otter AI, Octane AI. That's actually a survey tool that will give predictive insights into what products are going to be valuable for individuals. So that's a really great way to actually start to get a little bit more gangster with the product predictions. And then some of the cons or some of the limitations of this is like if you put garbage in, you're going to get garbage out. Like we were joking around with some of those prompts, but again, you'd want to be a little bit more serious about a lot of those, depending on what you want or what the outcome you want to see is. You want to make sure you're going to be adding value through those prompts. And basically, the predictions can only go so far. So that insight that these tools can bring are only going to go so far. Where these really thrive is when we use it for that foundational layer and then add the expertise on top of it. That's where some real magic can happen because people connect with people, not computers at this point, and where you can add that personalized expertise, that insight that only you could have because you've done it for years. That's where this is really going to be, again, a game changer because you don't have to do all that primary research. You get to just add your insights and expertise. Some people say like, is this legit? Yes, like try it, get on the bus, don't worry about it. And then some tips. If you do, again, try to run your prompts a few different times. If you run a prompt a few different times with a few modifiers, the lists or the feedback you're going to get is going to be completely different. So when you run those a few times, you may be able to get some insights, or you may be able to say like, hey, I'm going to take one of the most valuable like headlines I liked and say, hey, can I have 10 headlines similar to this? 10 headlines building off this same concept, 10 view items building off the same idea, and you can really start to get strategic in how you're narrowing your focus. So again, run the prompts a few times and see what you want. Get specific with your prompts, like again, like XYZ written for a toddler, XYZ written for an advanced runner versus a new runner versus somebody else, and then have some fun with it, like in the style of Vanilla Ice song. Like that's something completely different, but it's something that may be helpful and valuable for people to look through. So again, understand how it's going to work. What may be coming up next, and we talked about like, again, we have those two different categories of predictive and generative. When predictive can generate more for generative, when we're having our predictive content, like our expected next purchase date, drive through our generative, like when they can, again, send an automated email that's personalized and builds itself from a predictive and insight driving a generative email being built, like that will probably be the next step. We're probably going to see it down the road here, or when we have like a understanding like what our predictive data points are and like how would they generate an automation based on what they expect people to do. And when we start to get those recommendations, that's when things maybe get even more challenging and more hairy for marketers, but we'll cross that bridge when we get there. But it's kind of cool to see these tools available and really fun to see how we can start to use them as marketers to really get on our toes as opposed to be on our heels in the way that we're leveraging them to drive revenue and grow our businesses. So especially for the e-commerce stores, these are really great tools. You may be running a lean team, have some fun with these tools, and hopefully these will help. And like I mentioned, a lot of these tools are available, but like we'll have a list of them in the show notes or in the blog post that, again, shamelessly, we will be publishing based on the transcript of this video. So hopefully this is helpful, guys, and we'll see you all around. Bye-bye.